My name is Elizabeth Thompson. I'm 27 years old. I've been married for 5 years. I have one child, a son named Jack, who is 4 years old. I was working as a full-time employee right after getting married, but now I work as a part-timer at the same place. My husband is currently 30 years old. We, as a couple, started dating due to my husband James's persistent pursuit, which eventually led us to marriage. During our dating period, James was very kind, but it seems like he had the mentality of no need to feed the fish once it's caught, and he turned into a domineering man after marriage. He has a younger sister named Jennifer, who is about to turn 20, and he is overly indulgent with her, despite their age difference. Before our marriage, I had no issues with my sister-in-law. However, it wasn't just my husband who changed after we got married. She did too. She started visiting our home frequently, and James, who is indulgent with her, fulfills all her demands, making me feel like a housemaid who must operate according to Jennifer's requests. She often comes over without considering the time and without prior notice. Moreover, she always comes empty-handed. "Hey bro, I'm here again." And she completely ignores me like it's a normal thing. Then James, as usual,
"Good to see you. We were just about to have dinner. Want some?"
offers her the meal that was meant for just the three of us. Then, as expected, she sits at the dinner table and responds, "Yeah, that's why I came." I quietly tell him that there's only enough food for 3, but he insists that since his sister came, I should serve my portion to her. And then he says,
"You should always prepare extra since we never know when she's going to show up. It's your fault for not making more."
Upon hearing this, Jennifer apologizes to me with a sad face, which makes James comfort her and berate me, saying things like,
"You have no tact,"
or
"Stop bullying my sister."
I don't think she apologizes to me from the bottom of her heart. She just feels joy by knowing that James, who defends her, takes good care of her more than me. I go to make something for myself and head towards the dining table where James, Jennifer, and my son are sitting. But upon seeing me, Jennifer says,
"Bro, I need to talk to you about something private."
And James,
"You and Jack should eat somewhere else,"
excludes my son and I from the table. This is not the first time I've had to move Jack's meal to a tray and dine in the other room, just the two of us. After finishing the meal and heading to the kitchen to clean up the dishes, I noticed James and Jennifer chatting happily on the couch, and the dishes were left as is. Neither of them had even bothered to bring the dishes down to the kitchen. Perhaps they see me as a housemaid, and they totally ignore the child as well. It's as if the housemaid has brought along a child. I sighed and started cleaning up the kitchen, preparing to bathe Jack, when James called me over. As I approached the couch where the two of them sat, James said,
"Jennifer wants a piece of strawberry sponge cake from the bakery downtown. Could you go get it?"
It was almost 8 p.m. Despite knowing that it's time to bathe the child, he tells me to go to the cake shop. I can't. I need to bathe Jack and put him to bed. When I said this, Jennifer whined to James, "I really want to eat it."
"It's okay if he doesn't bathe just for today. How could you act like this when Jennifer has taken the trouble to visit us?"
James began to yell. Knowing that this would continue until his demands were met, I reluctantly agreed to go. The bakery closes at 9 p.m., so if I left now, I'd just make it in time, and I rushed to prepare when I heard the two of them talking. In a voice loud enough for me to hear, they said things like,
"Elizabeth is so inflexible,"
and "Why did you marry such a person?" Jack said, "I want to go too," so we decided to go together. The moment I stepped out the front door, I heard James's words.
"If you defy me again, we're getting a divorce."
He shouted this out loud, and Jack heard it too. He's only 4, so I don't think he understands the words, but he looks at me with a worried expression. I held back my tears at this treatment and asked him, "Jack, what kind of cake do you want to eat?" Jack's cloudy eyes sparkled. "Mommy, I want a cake with lots of apples." We had a lively conversation about cake on the way, and I was able to forget the unpleasant words for a moment. When we arrived at the cake shop, it was just about closing time. Although the selection was limited, I bought 2 slices of strawberry sponge cake and 1 slice of the fruit-covered cake that Jack had wanted and headed home. I opened the box, placed the cakes onto plates, and served them to James and Jennifer. Then I also put a piece of cake on a plate for Jack and headed to the dining table. When Jennifer saw Jack's cake, "That cake looks more delicious," she said. To my surprise, James then took Jack's cake and replaced it with Jennifer's. When Jack protested, "That's my cake!" But Jennifer simply ignored him and ate his cake. Seeing Jack cry, James told him,
"I bought that cake with the money I earned, so Jack, you don't have the right to choose."
He said this to a 4-year-old child. I was outraged at his comment and confronted the two of them. But again, he threatened,
"I'm fine with getting a divorce."
Jack stopped crying and looked at me with a worried expression. Then, after thinking for a while, Jack started eating the shortcake that Jennifer was supposed to eat. "Mommy, this cake is delicious. I'm glad I got this one," he said. I could tell he was forcing himself to be okay. There were 3 adults here forcing a small child to endure such a situation. Perhaps in response to Jack's words of it being delicious, the moment Jennifer's fork stretched towards Jack's cake, I picked up Jack's plate. "Jack, how about we eat in the other room?" Saying that, I took Jack to the other room and decided to let him eat his cake leisurely. I wanted to eat that shortcake too. Hearing her words, James,
"It's fine if Jennifer has a bite, isn't it?"
he shouted. I thought about talking back to James, but I didn't want Jack to hear the word divorce again, so I held back. In the other room, watching Jack eat his cake with a look of enjoyment, I felt a sense of relief. He had cake, and I took a bath together with Jack, ignoring my husband and Jennifer. We then went to bed together in Jack's bed. The next day, as usual, Jennifer had already left when I woke up. While I was waking up James and Jack and preparing breakfast, I heard Jack's crying, so I rushed to him. To my surprise, the porcelain piggy bank that my father bought for him, which I had placed in the living room, was broken, and the money inside was gone. Every night before sleep, Jack would always say good night to that piggy bank. I saw him saying good night to the piggy bank last night as well. With that, I thought that James, who was in the living room, would know something about it, so I immediately asked him. Then, without any remorse,
"She just needed a little money, so she said she broke the piggy bank."
He said it as if it didn't concern him at all, even while Jack was crying. I was consoling crying Jack, but before I knew it, I was crying along with him. I could bear not to cry over the things that James and Jennifer have done to me, but the fact that Jack was not protected by James and wondering what Jack means to James made me sad. A feeling I had never experienced before, a mix of sadness and anger welled up within me. Seeing Jack and I crying, James said,
"Don't make me feel gloomy first thing in the morning."
He coldly threw out his words. I finally lost my patience and openly showed my anger towards James. "Don't you think it's wrong what you did? Even seeing Jack crying like this?" For the first time, I spoke out in anger. I had thought that I would never show a marital dispute in front of Jack, but I had reached my limit. Without responding to me, James quickly went to the bedroom, came back with something in his hand. It was a divorce form that he had brought, shoving the divorce papers at me.
"If you're not satisfied with what I say and do, let's get a divorce."
And just like that, he went off to work. Until now, Jack had never cried over anything involving James and Jennifer, but from last night, he had been crying nonstop, as if he had reached his limit. I, too, had long passed the point of patience. "Jack, let's not push ourselves today and skip daycare, okay?" When I said that, Jack, with a loud, "Yay!" seemed overjoyed at being able to stay with me. "Mommy's gonna be the daycare teacher today, huh?" Jack's face, happily perched on my knee and looking up at me, is angelic. I felt that such a small child's heart must be filled to the brim with patience. The two of us decided to play our hearts out today, to release all the pent-up patience inside us. At work, I knew it would cause some inconvenience, but I felt that this was the best way I could do for Jack, so I explained the situation and took some time off. We went to the park, played until we were out of energy by lunchtime, returned home to eat, and Jack seemed sleepy. Usually he naps alone on the couch, but today he was incredibly clingy and laid down on my lap like a baby to sleep. I had planned to do housework during his nap, but I thought, today is a special day, and decided to find comfort in watching Jack's sleeping face. Then suddenly, I heard the front door unlock. It was too early for my husband James. With that thought, I hurriedly picked up a nearby bag and hid in the bedroom closet with him in my arms. I felt someone come in, and straining my ears, I heard a voice. The voice sounded familiar, and the intruder seemed to be rummaging through something. Damn it, where did he hide it? For a while, I was scared of the sound of her rummaging, but when I calmed down a bit, I recognized the owner of the voice. It was Jennifer. Why does she have a key? What is she here for? What is she looking for? I opened the closet slightly and decided to observe Jennifer's behavior and listen to her mumbling. After roughly opening and closing something with loud noises, she made a phone call with a big sigh. I can't find it anywhere. Yeah, I've looked there too, but it's not there. Okay, I understand. I'll go home for now, bro. She certainly said bro. As I was thinking about what Jennifer and James were looking for, I heard her lock the door. I came out of the closet, gently placed sleeping Jack on the bed, and pondered over what had just happened. Maybe they were looking for something of mine, but I had no idea what they were looking for. Suddenly, I felt like James is a stranger, and I was scared. In a hurry, I packed Jack's belongings into the bag I was holding. Just when I finished packing, he woke up. Jack, let's go to Grandpa's house. Saying this, I took Sleepy Jack's hand, quickly headed for the station, and took the train to my parents' home. As my parents' home was only 2 stops away, we arrived quickly. Seeing us arrive without any notice, my parents were taken aback. As soon as Jack got home, he began playing happily with the family dog. While watching this, I explained to my parents about everything that had happened and what we had just experienced, telling them I was scared and that's why we came. I wonder if what Jennifer has been looking for is your banking card from your single days. I became certain that was it too. Actually, I had a successful online shop for handmade goods, which I started when I was single and later expanded by inviting my friends. In the handmade business, by the time the shop grew a bit famous, I had already decided to get married. I asked my trusted friends to take care of the shop until my child-rearing days were over, working part-time hours at the office and doing the rest of the work from home. Actually, I haven't told my husband that I'm still the president of the company. However, he does know about my past success with starting a business when I was single. I am still working at that company, but he thinks I have stepped down from my position as president and am working as a part-timer. There's a reason I've kept it a secret from my husband. After we decided to get married, I found out that he spends his entire salary and has no savings. He wanted me to quit my job and become a full-time housewife, promising to provide for our living expenses, but only giving me $300 for food expenses. I couldn't accept these conditions, so after much arguing, it was settled that I would work part-time. But that's not all. He even had me sign a contract through a lawyer to renounce any claims to marital property after our marriage, and I felt like he had made me not break up with him financially. Even after our child was born, I only received money for food expenses, and I have been paying for the child's clothes and daycare. Seeing me pay without complaint, he might think that I still have savings from my single days. That's probably why they are looking for my banking card from my single days. It all made sense. In addition to that, I have a savings account which I have been slowly adding to since our marriage for our child. I have actually been saving by having a portion of my salary transferred to that account. In any case, it's highly likely that they're after the banking card. There's nothing else those siblings would be looking for. However, I believe in carrying my valuables like my banking card, so no matter how much Jennifer or my husband search, they won't find anything. There's another problem though. It's that Jennifer has a key and can come and go freely from our house. And the fact that my husband is okay with this situation? My father advised me to keep my banking card at our family home, so I took his advice and stored it in our family's safe. Then he voiced another concern.
But why does he want to go to such lengths to get money?
While pondering this with my parents, Jack came over and tearfully confessed to having broken the piggy bank he received from my father and his inability to save money in it as he had promised to do. This enraged my father, who turned red with anger. He was about to call my husband to voice his complaints when my mother stopped him. First, let's ascertain whether the banking card is really the objective. According to my mother, without any evidence, acting recklessly, considering my husband's casual mentions of divorce, he could just flee with an excuse, declare us in the wrong, and this might give him an advantage in the divorce. So I decided to record their conversation to find out what their true intentions were. For the time being, my parents decided to consult a family lawyer who's been a friend of my father since way back, and we decided to return to our home. As I was preparing dinner after coming home, my husband returned. I started recording on my phone and placed it face down. As expected, his first question was about the location of the banking card. When I asked why he wanted to know the location of the banking card, the conversation did not progress as he simply evaded the question. I kept silent, which made my husband angry.
My sister's in trouble, so hand over all your part-time job earnings.
In response, I said, I can't because I'm saving for our child. Upon hearing this, he took out a signed divorce paper from his bag and thrust it at me.
You can't even live without me, and yet you're so arrogant. It's okay not to save money for our child now.
He insinuated that there was no way I could divorce him and implied that his sister was more important than Jack. Without a word, I stopped preparing dinner, put the divorce papers in the bag I had prepared when I visited my parents during the day, grabbed Jack's hand, and headed for the front door.
If you leave, don't ever come back. I'm serious about the divorce.
In response, he said, I don't want to return to a house where Jennifer can freely come and go. I then left the home I was accustomed to. Almost immediately, I received an inordinate number of calls and emails from my husband, all of which I ignored and headed to my parents' house. I let my parents listen to the recording I had made earlier and showed them the filled-out divorce papers I had been handed by my husband. They asked me what I wanted to do. I said that I had run out of patience and love, but my main concern was Jack's feelings. They said it might be best to divorce to prevent further harm to Jack's heart, but that's an adult's opinion, and there's also the possibility that the divorce could cause new harm to the child's heart. As I was lost in thought, Jack mentioned he was hungry, and so my mother made his favorite dish, hamburgers. Upon hearing that she had bought ingredients in advance so we could return home at any time, tears welled up in my eyes, and I could not hold them back. The hamburger must have been delicious because Jack, I wish I could eat Grandma's hamburgers every day, grinning from ear to ear, and told that to my mother. Well, that's because a hamburger's filled with how much I love you. After that, Jack popped a bite-sized piece of hamburger into my mouth. This hamburger is filled with love. Isn't it tasty? So, Mommy, please don't cry. This was something I couldn't bear. I cried even more. Seeing Jack in distress, my father quickly said,
These are tears of joy. Your mother is crying because she's so happy you gave her a hamburger.
And he took his time to gently explain it to Jack. If Jennifer was here, she would have eaten this hamburger. As he said this, my mother started crying and hugged him. Looking at my father, I noticed he was also trying hard not to cry, his eyes welling up. When I said, Family is wonderful, isn't it? To Jack, and he looked at me with surprise and said, Dad said his only family is Jennifer. Is my family just Grandma and the others? My father replied,
That's right.
Then he continued,
Do you want to live together as a family forever?
Yay! We're a family, right? He tilted his head to the side, grinned, and made us all laugh. When was the last time we relaxed and enjoyed a meal like this? When was the last time we had a meal filled with so many smiles? I decided to divorce and slowly conveyed this decision to Jack. He seemed not to feel any love from his father and was happy to stay with the family, so he understood about the divorce. And even though our dog back at our parents' house was older, Jack happily hugged him, saying, He's my little brother. The next step is just to act. I will contact the lawyer of my father's friend and meet tomorrow to talk. That night, Jack slept with my father and our dog Max. I shared a bed with my mother, reminiscing about stories from my childhood until we fell asleep. The next day, I turned on my phone. I found over 200 missed calls and emails from my husband, James. The emails alternated between scathing remarks and pleas for forgiveness, leaving me uncertain whether he was genuinely remorseful. Sighing, I turned off my phone again. In the afternoon, my lawyer arrived, and I discussed the details of my situation, confirming my decision to divorce at the same time. Subsequently, we officially signed the contract, and the lawyer said he would meet with James the next day. 2 days later, the lawyer came to my parents' house. When I asked about the outcome, it turned out that Jennifer had a shopping addiction and frequented male strip clubs, borrowing a significant amount of money from loan sharks who easily lend to her, with James as her guarantor. It seems that they had a plan between them to use my savings to repay the debt when the repayment was delayed. He seemed to be saying that since he confessed, he didn't want a divorce and wanted me and Jack to come back. When I told him that I was determined to divorce and had already submitted the divorce papers,
Does that mean Elizabeth can marry someone else?
he asked the lawyer.
If she has the opportunity, yes.
When he replied,
But I don't want to let her go.
it seems he broke down crying. Then he signed a promissory note to pay Jack $500 in child support every month, and the lawyer said that he had brought everything to a close. Afterwards, I received a call from my ex-husband, and we talked briefly. His voice had lost its vigor, and he spoke calmly. He had thought that by financially binding me, I wouldn't be able to divorce him, even if I ended up despising him. And he admitted that he had always believed that it was brotherly love to do everything for Jennifer, his younger sister who had always been dependent on him since they were kids, but now he realized that it was a mistake. He confessed that he was jealous of Jack, feeling as if I had been taken from him, even though he did love Jack.
Once Jennifer and I have finished repaying her debts, I'll come for you, so please don't remarry.
When I told him that my love for him had withered and that there was absolutely no chance of us starting over, I could hear his sobbing over the phone. Then I said, "Please be happy," and he hung up the phone. I decided to rely on my parents until Jack grows up and transferred him to a different daycare. I also revived my career as a businesswoman at the same time. As for my ex-husband and Jennifer, I couldn't stay silent any longer, so I told my in-laws about everything. They were outraged that they could never see Jack again, and they decided to disown the two of them. James and Jennifer are living together in an old apartment, and it seems that the stress of their cramped quarters has led them to constantly blame each other for their current predicament. Despite once being so close as siblings, they have only themselves to blame. I've decided to consider their situation as my own form of revenge.